I think I have never seen this kind of hype after the Blonde BLO3. Honestly, this I am even its status is still pre-ordered. I remember that when the status is still pre-ordered, in at least in my place, it is already sold for 100 products. So yeah, the hype is just crazy with this one. So hello and welcome to Aftersound Review, and this is my review for the very hyped Moondrop Chu that costs only around $20, and it's using a single dynamic driver. So just like usual, I will break down this review from the build, fit, frequency response, sound, and comparison. Well, build quality wise, I couldn't complain. It feels quite durable. I think it's using aluminum. It feels like metal, but it doesn't really feels like heavy item. And the body itself like this, it's all feels quite durable. And the nozzle somehow has hexagonal shape to the filter, and you get this Moondrop spring tips as your default ear tips, and it is separately sold around $12. So yeah, in case of value, this IM itself, so maybe this IM itself costs around less than $10, because for the whole packaging you get $20 and you get the S, M, and L spring tips with this IM. So talking about value, it's really good. But I don't really like that they made this undetachable. So yeah, it's non-detachable cable, and the cable itself feels like cheap. It feels cheap in my hand. It's really springy and not really flexible. But other than that, I don't think I have any complaint. In terms of ergonomics, I think I'm having a personal issue with that. With this kind of fit, I need you to see this. Because it's an over-ear IM, you could see that there's a band around this part. And because it's constantly bending, I'm afraid that it will break one day. But here's the thing. This IM for me is more recommended to be used deep fit. So you need to quite push them into your ears. If not, the bass is not really there and it will sound quite hollow. So yeah, for me it's definitely more recommended to be worn using a deep fit isolation. But the thing is, when you get this ear guide and you use them with this, it helps with the durability, I believe. But I couldn't use a deep fit when I'm using this help of a ear guide. So personally, for me, I'm using it better without this ear guide. But one thing that I don't really like this IM is having this kind of vacuum effect that I feel, but this is very subjective. It might be different with your sensation because it has something to do with your ear shape. But in my experience, it somehow gives the vacuum effect that is somehow also giving a claustrophobic sensation. So I don't really like the isolation and that vacuum effect from this IM. Well, in terms of frequency response, I think this IM is somehow, the curve is almost similar to the Harman curve IM, especially around that 3K elevation. But the thing is that sub-bass elevation is quite lacking to be called the same with the Harman IM, such as the Aria or Kato or Tanjim Oxygen. It's lacking a sub-bass presence, so yeah, it's somehow quite neutral to my ears. So I have tested this Moondrop Chu using several of my sources, and for me, yeah, they are simply quite easy to drive, and I have to give a little bit of testimony maybe with this spring tips, because other than these tips, for me, when I'm using quite thick material tips like the Acoustion AET-08 or maybe the Final Audio Type E, it will give more body to the overall sound, but it's somehow giving more claustrophobic and closed sensation for me. And when I'm using thinner material, maybe like orthophone, somehow sounds quite bright and definitely shouty. So for me, to find that kind of balancing of the sound, I still prefer this spring tips in the end to be the most recommended to be used with this Moondrop Chu. Okay, let's get to the sound. Mostly when I'm hearing this Moondrop Chu is somehow, I feel like it's almost like a harmony-ish sensation, but with less bass That's what I'm thinking, especially about that upper mid-range. If you are already familiar with the Moondrop Aria and maybe like the Juno Titan S and also the Blessing, you will find that almost similar tonal balance and sensation, especially around that upper mid-range, but has less bass punch. Okay, let me break it down first from the bass. I think when it comes to the price, I mean around $20, this is the cleanest bass that I have ever heard, especially around that it could reach that sub bass in a fairly good enough quantity for me to enjoy. Of course, this is not for a bass head EDMs and such, but for me the quantity of the bass, that sub bass punch, is just enough for me to enjoy a lot of music. But it's lacking texture. It doesn't have that dynamic texture, that bounciness, and it's also lacking maybe a mid-bass punch for calling it to be a really true all-rounder kind of bass. So yeah, it's kind of here and there. It has weakness, but it has plus. But for me, one thing I should appreciate is how clean that bass is. It could reach that sub bass cleanly. I mean, around this price point, when you want to get that sub bass, especially, you will hear a lot of mid bass punch that is usually bleeding to the mid range, but not in this case. Okay, and then to the mid range, this is another Moondrop kind of mid range. It will go almost shouty, but in return, if you are quite tolerant with the Moondrop typical upper mid range, it is also one of the cleanest mid range around its price point. The female vocal sounds really clean, and yeah, you get that a little bit of sweetness here, and then you will hear male vocal sound quite clean also, but it's lacking a little bit of body for me when I'm hearing male vocal. So it's quite enjoyable for a lot of vocalist song. But here's the thing, that I find that there is a certain shoutiness I find whenever I hear intense vocalists such as Keala Settle, especially when I hear This Is Me from the Greatest Showman soundtrack, and also from the Hugh Jackman's voice himself from the From Now On, again the This Is Me, the Greatest Showman soundtrack. So yeah, in some certain tracks I hear a little bit of shoutiness, and the treble part, I couldn't really complain about it because it has enough sparkle to make it not dark, but it's not really extended. So, but again, considering the price, I think that it's enough. I don't really get any metallic hints or any sibilants or anything like that. So yeah, I think the tonal, it's just fine and good. It's the thing that I really like about this, the thing that I really appreciate is maybe the cleanest sound from this price point that I've ever tried. And here's the thing that I don't really like. I feel that this IM is lacking dynamics. I don't really hear that decibel shift, that decibel change from the ref, from the refrain, and also from the other part of the song. So I don't really hear that dynamics change, dynamic contrast from a lot of music. It just feels, I'm not gonna lie, harshly saying that this IM, it feels like a cheap driver, but it's made as cleanly as possible and also as controlled as possible. So in return, you get that kind of lacking in dynamics, but in return, you get a very clean presentation from an IM. So yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing, that sensation of what I hear from this Moondrop Chu. And when it comes to technical performance, I don't really have anything worthy to be noted. It's just around $20. It's just fine. I don't hear any outstanding clarity or outstanding resolution. The sound stage is so-so. The clarity and resolution is just fine. It's not bad, but it's not really the best either. So yeah, it's just according to its price point. That's all I could say. And when it comes to comparison, I need to bring this up, the Moondrop Spaceship. I think this is the previous Moondrop's $20 IM. For me, the Moondrop Spaceship somehow has a better fit, at least for my ears. But when it comes to bass, it's definitely more deeper in this Moondrop Chu, while this Moondrop Spaceship is somehow, the punch is more focused in the mid bass, but this Moondrop Chu I'm sorry, the Moondrop Spaceship is more focused in the mid bass, while the Moondrop Chu is more focused in the sub bass. But the vocal, I think that this Moondrop Spaceship is somehow less shouty, even though it is less clear also. This Moondrop Chu has better vocal rendition, it has better pronunciation of the words, it has better clarity, but in return it somehow get a little bit more intense and shouty at times. But other than that, in terms of clarity and in the technical performance, I think they are simply on the same level. So yeah, it's not really a jump in that regards. And also in comparison with the Tanjim Tanya, for me Tanjim Tanya is way more warmer with much more mid bass and also more rolled off treble. But if you are more sensitive to that kind of shoutiness and upper mid range elevation, for me the Tanjim Tanya is still a safe choice to recommend if you like that kind of warm sounding IM, and it has a better three-dimensional soundstage. But in terms of resolution and clarity, again, it's on the same level. So for me, comparing one more with this CCA CRA Plus, in terms of dynamics, I feel that CCA CRA Plus is one of the best that I could find on this price range, and also the extension is outstanding. It has much better extension in the treble area, and it's more textured sub bass for me compared to the Moondrop Chu. But in returns, it sounds way more dirty and kind of muddy at times compared to this Moondrop Chu. But here's the thing, I somehow prefer this CCA CRA Plus due to better dynamics and better fun factor, but it sounds less clean than this Moondrop Chu. But in return, this Moondrop Chu can be sound emotionless and also lacking dynamics and openness. So yeah, it again back to your preference. But personally, if I want something more exciting to hear, more energetic, actually I prefer the CCA CRA Plus. But when I'm hearing maybe like classical music or some vocalist or maybe some really good mastering recording, I would choose this Moondrop Chu better. So yeah, I think this Moondrop Chu is definitely a good product. I couldn't deny that, but it's not a killer. It's not like just buy this Moondrop Chu and forget everything else around $20. No, for me, some of the IMs around this price point still have their good points, and especially when it comes to technicality, I think they are all just on the same level. I hope you understand what I mean and you enjoy this review, and if you have any question, please write down in the comments below, and see you next time. Bye bye.